Hey everyone. Um, so I haven't made a video in a while, and I thought, wow, it's really about time. Like with all the recent things that have been happening in the world. I mean, the French riots and Brexit and Trump. I mean, these are clearly now. These are clearly all symptoms. Okay, they're all symptoms of a much, much bigger, broader picture that we really have to take into consideration now, because the future is I believe in our hands, but it's slipping away. And if we don't start to realize why things are the way they are, um, anything's possible, and no one has the answers. I'm not going to say I have the answers. Everything is a paradox in many ways, but the paradox that's staring us in the face now is a result of the system. So I want to talk about sound money and why it is that sound money offers a solution. It really does. We have a paradox in our system that is really simple. Okay, we live in a finite world. We live in a finite world. We have finite resources. The resources we've chosen to adopt are finite because we've chosen resources like, like oil and coal and rainforests. We have infinite resources: solar power, hydropower, wind power. These are as close to infinite as we can imagine for the time being. And, slowly they're being adopted. But, man, we're going to have to speed things up. The world we live in is a finite world of resources that we've chosen. However, the system that we have based ourselves on for the last, X number of years, it has been a debt-based system. Now, debt is infinite because you can just print that debt to infinity, okay? However, we live in a finite world, which means that we don't have infinite resources. So while there's no limit to the amount of debt that can be created, there's a limit to the amount of real products you can buy with that debt. If we had infinite resources, great, let's print money till the end of the world. That's fantastic, okay? I don't want to group economists into one big bag, but what's happened is they've put themselves in this bag, okay? Economists, big bankers, they all have this theory, this Keynesian theory. It's a Keynesian economic theory. And Keynesians believe that they have access to infinite debt. Okay? Let's just inflate the currency until infinity and everything's okay. They don't realize that you can't physically do that, because firstly, we don't have infinite resources. Secondly, people aren't going to accept that one group of people can have infinite access to debt, whereas the rest of the groups of people have this limited access to credit. I mean, that's the best way to put it, right? Credit effectively it steals your ownership. Okay, you go to the bank, you say, look, I want to buy a house. The bank gives you a loan, a mortgage, and so you get a house which you think is yours, but actually it still is owned by the bank. The idea of debt, it takes away the idea of ownership. And so who ends up in control? Well, it's the big banks, right? by remaining in this debt-based system, we're effectively handing over power to the people who control the system. They print the money, and they get to use the money first, which means they get the better purchasing power. It's this thing called the Cantillon effect, which was written about actually centuries ago by a guy called Richard Cantillon, a French economist. And what he realized was that the people who print the money first get access to the money first. They also get infinite access to the money as well. So they use it to buy up all the assets, and so their wealth it's maintained the value of those assets. By the time that money reaches everyone else, basically, that money doesn't have the value anymore because inflation has taken it away. So not only do people not have enough money, but the inflation has taken away their purchasing power. So this monopoly of the Fed, of big banks, because I mean the Fed and the big banks are effectively exactly the same thing, it's infected society, okay? Because it's stealing money from the future. It's stealing money from the population. That's great, okay? We haven't really had another system for a long time. You know, we're always developing as a society, and you know, you can't blame what's happened in the past, but we can look to the future and think, okay, how are we going to deal with this now? We've got massive disparity in the world. So the Fed proposes, they realize that you know, it's either hyperinflation or hyperdeflation. So what they're saying is, okay, well we'll stop printing so much. By drying up the supply, we've seen it in 2000, 2007. It just immediately leads to a cataclysmic collapse, right? Everything just fucks up as soon as they stop printing. In the past, they've only resorted to two schools of economics, right? They've had the Marxism school, or they've had the Keynesian school, both of which are realizing that they fail, okay? You know, the collapse of the middle class, the collapse of the people, the majority of the people, is what suffers under both Marxism or Keynesianism. Because these systems, they suck from the mass of the people. They basically just serve the people who are in control, or the central powers that be. We actually had sound money actually before the Industrial Revolution. Now, I'm not saying the Industrial Revolution was a bad thing, but if you look at that period before the Industrial Revolution, we had incredible advances in many things. It was considered the Belle Epoque, it was considered the Gilded Age, the Victorian Age, whichever way you want to look at that period. You had a gold standard, and gold was not controlled by governments. It gave people self-sovereignty, and it enabled real liberty in the world, because you could transact with anyone in the world. You know, there was no FedEx, no this foreign exchange stuff where you have to pay to send money overseas. You know, trade was a much easier thing to accomplish, and you didn't have centralized power of things. Gold is a sound money. However, the problems with gold is that, well, there are many problems with gold. I won't get into them now, but effectively you've got governments who choose to take over the access to gold, the quality of gold. They can melt gold and add other metals. They can inflate gold like that. It's cumbersome. It's hard to protect. It's hard to send. It's hard to receive. It's expensive to keep, even though it is really sound money, and no one has control as in, they can't just print a whole pile of gold. I really do believe that if people want to embrace a balance in the world, which I believe we really have to now because of this idea of the paradox. It's an economic thing which is at the base. I mean, think of it like this, that if we don't have the environment, if we don't have clean air and clean water and safety in the world and resources in the world, we're all going to die, okay? I mean, it's pretty simple, really. Now, what underpins all of this is economical, actually, and it is this concept of sound money. It enables the individual sovereignty of somebody. It enables them to maintain their purchasing power. It enables them to maintain their investment. It doesn't inflate. It doesn't create debt. It creates sound, reliable money that people can say is truly theirs. You don't build a house on sand, right? You build a house on something that's solid, on a rock. You can build from something and build on top of something. And sound money offers that because you don't have to think, okay, I'm going to take from the future now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this, and this is, whatever this is going to grow. And that's going to add to the future, right? Instead of taking from the future, you're adding to the future. That's the purpose of sound money. That is a psychology. It's a way of thinking about how you can improve not only your economic situation, your complete psychological situation, your complete understanding of how to better yourself in life. This is what is so far removed from education, from an understanding of what is worthwhile in the world. Sound money is the principle of better life itself. I mean, I know that's a really big statement, but if you have individual self-sovereignty, something that you can truly say is yours, something that will grow, something that governments and banks and no one has the power to take away from you, that is what can build life. It's what civilization is actually built upon. Having sound money. Simple. Now, I keep getting to this point, but Bitcoin just far supersedes all of these other ideas of currency, economies. It just completely wipes everything off the board. So anyway, I believe that's one possibility. If you like this video, subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Cheers, everyone. Bye. Just before I go, I have to mention Saifedean Ammous, Trace Mayer, and of course Andreas Antonopoulos. These guys really opened my eyes to the concept of sound money and what is Bitcoin. Definitely have to read these guys if you can. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you next time. Bye.